Hi, in this video, I want to show you 3 common stitches to use when sewing by hand. I don't have a sewing machine, and have recently been looking into which stitches work better for what. After sifting through a bunch of videos and learning them for myself, I figured I'd share what I learned and hopefully it helps you. So when you're preparing to hand sew, you only want to take about an arm's length of thread, otherwise it'll get tangled while you're working with it. So when you tie your knot for your thread, you're going to loop it around your finger, and you're going to pinch and roll just like this. Grab the little tail, pull it through, and grab the bottom of the knot and pull it so the knot comes to the end of the thread. And then you'll take your scissors and just cut the excess off the end, leaving a little bit after the knot. For the running stitch, we're going to fold it over so I can show you what the seam looks like after. And you're actually going to want to take your needle, and instead of just going through the back, you want to go through the center because it'll hide your knot. So once you go through the center, I like to start off with a back stitch because it gives it some strength in the beginning. So you push your needle through the back, go backwards, away from your hand, back through the front of the fabric, and loop it back around through the same hole that you went through first. This step just gives you some rigidity in the beginning of your stitch. Then from here you're going to go back into the first hole you made. You're going to fold the fabric together and push the needle straight through the fold. Make sure to keep tension on your thread so it doesn't knot up on you when you pull it through. Here we're going to do the same thing. Try to keep your space where you put the needle in even with the one before. Same deal, we're going to fold it and pull it through. So the running stitch is a very fast stitch once you get the hang of it, but it's not very strong. It can come unraveled if the seam breaks. Normally it's used to loosely hold 2 pieces of fabric together, but you can also use it to create ruffles or to gather fabric. So if you are having trouble keeping your stitching straight, you can actually take a ruler or any kind of straight edge. I just made one out of cardboard, and take your pencil. If you're using light fabric, or if you're using dark fabric, you can use chalk and just draw a straight line for where you want your stitch to go. It'll make it a lot easier to keep your needle straight on the line. I'm going to go ahead and make some extra marks here to tell me where I want the needle to go in and out. So I'm going to push in here where the first mark is, and bend the fabric, and then push the needle back out where the second mark is. And then I'm just going to follow that through the rest of the way down the stitch. So if you want and you get comfortable, you can actually do multiple folds at one time. Just try to make sure you keep your spaces even. If your needle matches the spacing of your thread, then your thread will be even. So if it's not, you can pull it back out and try it again. So I'm going to show you how it can be gathered. So if you grab the end of your stitch and pull, the fabric will gather around the running stitch. And this is good for things like making skirts that have ruffles, or even, for example, a chef's hat. If you turn it upside down, this is what makes the shape of a chef's hat too. So when you're ready to end your running stitch, you're going to go through the fabric one last time, and And then you're going to go back through the hole before, so you make a loop, kind of like doing a back stitch again. But on the back side of the fabric, you're going to leave the thread open, so when you push the needle through the last time, you'll be able to wrap that thread around the needle and make a knot. So when you make your knot, you're going to want to wrap the thread around the needle twice. Hold your tension on your thread while you pull the knot tight, and then cinch it down. And there's your running stitch. So as you can see, the seam is not very strong. If it does pop or the thread breaks, the seam will come unraveled. So I would suggest mixing running stitch and back stitch. If you decide to do that, just every few running stitches make a back stitch, but the stitch is not as strong as an actual back stitch, which is what we're going to learn right now. So a back stitch is very strong. It's the best one to use when you're hand sewing without a machine. You can seam pants and shirts with it, and it will hold tight. I'll say the difficulty for this one is about a 4, because it is kind of difficult to keep even and to space just right. But once you get the hang of it, it does still go pretty quickly. I'm going to fold the fabric over so I can show you the seam after. So I'll take the straight edge. I'm going to pull it a little bit further away from the end. Then I'm going to make some markings to make sure I know where I want my needle to come in and out. Now, if you use an actual ruler, your markings will be way more precise than mine were. I was pretty much eyeballing it. So here we go, this is the back stitch. So you're going to want to come underneath the fabric again through the center, the same way, so we can hide the knot. And you're going to want to go backwards one space or one marking. You're going to fold it back and try to come right out of the same hole you went in the first time, so you can get that initial first stitch to keep your place. Then you're going to go back into the same stitch you just came out of. Go one space. This is just to set you up for the actual stitch. So from here on, we'll do the actual back stitch. So you're going to go, instead of here like a running stitch, you'll go backwards one space, hence why it's called the back stitch. And then instead of coming right out like we just did, you're going to skip a space and come out one space ahead of the last stitch. So I'll show you one more time in real time before I speed up the video. So you're going to go back one space, skip a space on the back side, push it through the marking ahead of where your last thread came out. Keep tension on your thread so it doesn't knot up on you. And yeah, we're just going to follow that all the way through. So you want to be really careful not to pull super tight. You don't want your fabric to cinch like this, because it doesn't look good in the seam. So if that happens, try to pull it back and loosen it back up. You just don't want to pull your thread too tight. Right, so to finish the back stitch, we're going to do pretty much the same thing we did with the running stitch. Usually if you do a back stitch like this, it's going to be on the inside of the clothing, so it's really, the stitch really is not going to be seen, so you can tie it on either side. But you're going to go through the same hole you came out of the first time. Pull it tight on the back side of the fabric, just like that. And then you're going to pull your needle through this loop 2 times. I kind of struggle with it. Maybe my loop too small. So you want to give yourself enough room to be able to maneuver with the needle without stabbing yourself or anything like that. And once you get it through the loop, you just pull it tight. Be sure to pull to either side, but again, not too tight. We don't want to cinch the fabric up, because it will affect the way the seam looks. So like I said before, this is a really strong stitch. It's definitely used for sewing pants or shirts or anything like that without a sewing machine. Definitely a must-know if you do not have a sewing machine. So our third and final stitch today is called the blanket stitch. Now this is a very strong stitch, and if you practice it and get it down pretty good, it can look really good as well. But the spacing can get really tricky. So I'd rate this one a difficulty as 7 out of 10. So it does take some practice to get it just right. So you use it to reinforce the edge of like a fleece blanket or felt, or if you're making a doll or something you're going to stuff, it will hold stuffing and things like that. So again, I'm just going to draw where I want my needle to come through, just to help me keep it spaced pretty evenly, because the more evenly spaced your stitches are, the better it will look. So when you do a blanket stitch, you're actually going to start on the side of the fabric that's away from you and work towards your body, and you'll always come in through the back side of the fabric. I mean, here we're going to start in the center to hide our knot, just like the other two. So then you're going to go around the back side, and for the first stitch, you're going to poke straight through the same hole you just came through. You want to pull a loop around the top of the fabric, and right here I actually forgot to put the needle through the loop, but you're supposed to put the needle through the loop towards your other hand and then pull back to put the needle in the next spot. So I'll point it out when I go to the next stitch. I do it correctly the rest of the time. So here you push through the back to your next spot, make a loop, pull your needle through the loop, and pull tight. And here I'm trying to understand what I did wrong, because I still didn't realize that I missed that loop the first time. Just decided to move on. The same thing through the back, up and create a loop, and then you're going to just pull through the loop. After you get in a rhythm with this stitch, it can become pretty easy. So yeah, that's the blanket stitch. I hope this tutorial was able to bring you some better understanding about hand stitching. Thank you for watching my video, and keep crafting.